And for more on this deadly earthquake, environmentalist Desmond Majakojumi joins me on the ward now. He joins me virtually. Good to have you join us.
Thank you very much. It's good to be
This is a very devastating crisis in Turkey. Not the first. There was one in 1999 that killed about 17,000 people, and this is seen as even worse than that. But very little concrete information is known at this moment. It's been treated as a natural disaster. But for environmentalists like yourself, how do you view the situation?
Well, the reality is that the frequency of earthquakes over the last few decades has actually increased tremendously. Luckily, a lot of them are quite mild. They call earth tremors. So you just feel a bit of shaking, maybe a bit of noise. But some of them, like this one, are devastating. And the reason why they have increased is because of what we human beings are doing. There's several things that we are doing that are aggravating the possibility of earthquakes being unleashed, especially when we do it on what they call the tectonic plate areas, where different aspects of the earth are sort of meeting themselves. And if we continue doing these things, sadly, we're going to have a lot more of these terrible disasters.
And we also understand that, of course, Syria was affected as well. But we also understand that tremors were felt as in places like Lebanon, Cyprus, and Egypt. That's how bad this particular earthquake was. Is this perhaps an indication of what the kind of, or the, indication that we should brace ourselves for this kind of terrible disasters this year?
Exactly. It's a definite indication that we should brace up, because when we're impacting the way that we're impacting on the environment, you are going to get reactions. And unfortunately, we just haven't taken into consideration the possibility of those reactions. And we're now seeing the gravity of the reactions. We have to start learning to treat nature, to treat the earth with far more deference, far more respect, because it's our only home. Planet Earth is our only home. And we're causing far too much damage in the atmosphere, so much pollution that's causing the global warming in the oceans and the waterways, massive amounts of plastic, all kinds of chemicals leaching into the groundwater, species extinction. This has to stop. And the earthquake is a very dramatic way of nature showing you that you've done the wrong thing. I mean, can you imagine? Just out of the blue, wow, your house is trembling. God forbid the house just collapses within seconds like that. It unleashes all kinds of problems, landslides, water flooding, dams can be broken. No, 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 no. We have to start giving far more reverence to nature. And after all, that's what our scripture says we should do. And we're here to care for the creation. We're here to replenish the earth. There's a bit of good news though, that Nigeria, because of her location and the fact that there's not that much evidence of tectonic plates within our location, we could avoid this for a while. But if we continue doing some of the things we're doing, we could trigger off something like this, especially offshore. And when you have an earthquake that's a little bit offshore, you can have massive waves, huge tsunami waves, and those can be very, very deadly as well. So there's certain things that we must stop doing, and that's particularly to do with things we do underground, especially when we're doing mining. If you are mining with too much of explosives, you can actually trigger off something that would be very, very disastrous.
And just beyond mining, I think some experts have also talked about the fact that, look, there is no, we rely on boreholes for water. And so almost every home has a borehole being drilled every other day, and perhaps that this also puts us at risk. Just speak on that as well.
No, you're absolutely right. If we tap too much of what they call the subaquifer, that is the water that it's like rivers and lakes that are underground. Okay, so you're now removing too much of that. You create a vacuum where the water was stabilizing, and if it's in a weak area, not necessarily even tectonic plates, but if it's in a weaker area, you could have a big collapse of the ground above where that water was. And that collapse now would create more vacuum and could have a chain reaction. And interestingly, though, in on the reverse, if you do a certain type of mining that they call fracking, okay, which requires a lot of water to be put into a particular location, that can also destabilize. I mean, basically, it's just, despite all the tremendous profits and the benefits that are gained from these activities, we have to bear in mind that the consequences, the negative consequences, can far outweigh the advantages of the profitability of the activity. And we need to put people and planet ahead of profit. That should always be our consideration. Be loving to our fellow man and not put them at risk going on.
I want to get back to Turkey because what we're seeing now is basically rescue operations and emergency response. But experts have always, like yourself, have always mentioned that, look, we're lagging behind in terms of climate change adaptation. That beyond mitigating climate change, that one of the biggest challenge we have is also putting in place adaptative measures. What kind of measures can be put in place in terms of adaptation? I know that that might differ from region to region, but for situations like this, what can we do in terms of adaptation?
Yes, well, the trend is that if you are residing in an area that is a little bit prone to these earth tremors, and I do believe that some of our more highland areas have experienced some earth tremors, then there should be more type of structural strength in your buildings. The buildings themselves, whatever you're building, it should be, there's ways of making buildings stronger using thicker type of steel, using maybe more cement, and just, building them in a way that they can withstand these tremors. That's about the only adaptation that you can do when it comes to people in those earthquake prone areas. The main thing, though, is to prevent it, the mitigation. We have to stop doing what we're doing in nature. There's no excuse to start burrowing so deep and then exploding, putting powerful explosives under there so you can do some extra mining and so on. No, 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 no. This is out of order. So adaptation you can only do to an extent, but mitigation can be done, should be done, must be done.
An environmentalist, Desmond Majekojumi, always a pleasure speaking with you.